All right, everybody. Thanks again for tuning into the IRL Ventures Travel Video Creators Podcast. I'm Ed Ventures, your host for today, and we got some really awesome stuff to talk about today. But before we get into that, I just wanted to also let you know that I made a couple appearances on some podcasts. So if you're interested in that, check out my Instagram. I have stories on there linking to both of those. So it is the Vision Pros podcast and Streamer Collabs podcast. Both of them just actually came out, and those are my first two guest appearances on podcasts. So that's pretty interesting, and it was a treat to see on Spotify like myself show up, and I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. So yeah, if you want to check those out, go ahead and check out my Instagram, and they're going to be linked there. But let's get into the episode for today. So thanks again for coming to the IRL Ventures Travel Video Creators Podcast. Our special guest today is Hamada from the Final 50 YouTube channel. Hamada is on a personal quest to experience every country on Earth. After 25 years of traveling, he's finally down to the final 50 destinations. Over the next few years, Hamada is traveling to some of the hardest to reach locales and some of his favorite international destinations, focusing on education, exploration, and entertainment, or mind, body, and soul, to make each destination a life experience to share with you. Welcome, Hamada. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me, Ed. It's an absolute pleasure. This is one of the few times I've actually done a podcast on travel, and I thought to myself, I should be doing more of these because I think there's so much we can learn from each other about different aspects of how we can really just maximize our travel experiences. And I like the fact that you're focusing on the content creation portion of it because that's somehow one of the hardest parts of it too. So I'm glad we're going to have an opportunity to talk about that.
So my first question, which I'm sure is on everyone's minds, is why did you decide to go to every country on Earth, and how did you start? Like, what were your first countries that you went to, and how, like, what point in time did you say, I'm going to do every single country?
Good question. I definitely did not have the aspiration to be a travel vlogger, obviously, when I was younger. In fact, I don't think it even existed. We probably saw tons of travel shows, the David Attenborough going around and doing things about Animal Planet and so forth, so on and so forth. And we saw what was that guy's name? Rick Steves, which I have a lot of love for that guy because I think he really is the OG travel vlogger, so to speak, because I feel like he just kind of winged it and just made it kind of happen. But in reality, I was born in Switzerland, so I was already kind of, if you can call it, traveling when I was where I was born, because obviously Switzerland being the heart of Europe, you could really kind of travel around those certain areas. And so we did travel a little bit to France, to Italy, and so forth. Obviously, I was way too young to remember. And then I became part of the diaspora. I'm Iraqi by background. My family then moved from Switzerland. We ended up in the Middle East, and then from the Middle East to the United States. So I would say by the time I entered college, I'd already been to about 10, 12 countries.
Wow.
But the reality was a lot of that was by necessity and some of it was not very comfortable. And I say that because the Iraqi passport is probably, and still is today, one of the most difficult passports to travel on. So I had a lot of difficulty traveling. I was treated with a lot of discrimination in different airports that we went to and so forth. And I think that really just hit home the idea of the freedom of mobility and how difficult it is and a factor that we should never take for granted. And I think that in and of itself, that when I started college, as I said, I had been to like a handful of countries, and recognizing how difficult it was to travel, I think really hit home. So when I got the US passport, I said to myself, I am never going to take this for granted. Now, I'm not going to say that in and of itself was the genesis, the origin story of why I want to see every country on Earth. But at least what I said is I'm never going to take for granted the freedom of mobility. And so that's really where I started traveling around college. You're broke, so you can't really travel that far. But I would say the first time I traveled to a place that was not the norm outside of Europe and where I would just transit through was around second year of college. And no, that's a lie. Third, final year of college, I actually went to Cuba.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's in 2002, and I went through Mexico.
Was that when
And
you still had the Iraqi passport
no,
or
I got the Iraqi passport when I was about 17, 18. And I was able to start traveling. That's no, probably 17. And I started traveling shortly thereafter to countries I couldn't go to, like Holland. I went for the Hamada United Nations. Finally, I was able to travel. Finally, I was able to go to these countries on my own accord and not transiting through. Um, and I went to Greece to play sports there from my school in Egypt. We were able to play sports there.
oh,
But it was when I started in college. I remember because I was in Mexico going to Cancun like everybody else at the time. You remember probably the. Or I don't know, maybe you're too young to remember, but back in the day, Cancun was all the rage and MTV and everything. We're like, oh my God, we're going to go there and rage. And I was going to school in Santa Barbara, UCSB. So you can imagine the kind of folks that were heading out to Cancun. And it was, I think, my second time going to Cancun. And I was just saying, you know what? I'm bored. I told my friend, let's just do something wild and let's go to Cuba. I think that was the first time I'd ever really stepped out the bounds of going to countries that were very frequently traveled to in Europe. Thereafter, the next year, I ended up going to Japan. Um, and then the next year, or maybe even later that year, I went to Morocco to visit a friend. And all those places I was visiting friends or doing something a little off the beaten path. That is when I said to myself, wow, I can travel, I can go to the world, I can see the world, and I can do so to make it a learning experience. Like
mm,
I could gain so much from just seeing these places. And it was a major flex because I was like, I could go to these places, I could go back and tell people, and they'd be like, "What? What does Cuba look like?" Or, "What do you mean you went to Japan and you took the Shinkansen and you traveled?" All these kind of
yeah,
things. And so I really liked it. I started getting a little bit more addicted to it, but nothing to the degree of trying to achieve this life goal that
yeah,
that you mentioned. We're talking like 5 countries, 10 countries, the next year, maybe another couple of countries. And I think it was about the time I started law school. And after law school, that things went wild. And then I was hitting into the deep double digits 50, 60, 70 countries. And then I was like, holy crap, I could actually do this.
yeah,
And then I really researched and I said, okay, there's 197 countries, 193 part of the UN,
yeah,
4 others that are not considered independent sovereign countries, but
right,
that are a lot of other people's bucket lists that you could
yeah,
pull off. And I just started doing it. And I just started knocking out one by one and trying to create a life, literally a life, that was centered around traveling. My jobs, sacrifices I made, savings I expended, personal relationships, all kinds of stuff to make this goal achievable.
wow. So that's really interesting what you said about learning and using travel as a way of education, because I definitely believe that too. And, you know, there's all these places you hear about growing up in books, in movies, in the news, but it's a totally different thing to go there and experience it yourself and speak to people and eat the food and see the sights for yourself. And, it's a completely different experience that there's no, even though we have all this technology, there's no substitute for going in person and experiencing it yourself. It's truly something you can't put into words. And what I think is really cool about travel video creating is that you try to share a bit of that with the audience so that they will be intrigued and learn a bit, and then maybe they'll be able to in the future go and experience it themselves and have their own unique experience, which I think is really cool. But yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Like being able to go to so many countries as a young person. I know a lot of people, myself included. I didn't start traveling till I was 19, and then I got addicted too. So I totally get that. Um, but you said you went to law school. So how were you able to, kind of balance your career and traveling, like you said? Like I know you said like you tried to focus on travel, but how would you do that? Like if you had to give advice to someone who really wants to travel, but maybe it's not the most convenient thing for them, how did you get to do that? And like how would you recommend other people be able to do that as well?
Sorry, just kind of broke a bit. So the question is, how can you actually make traveling a part of your life and
Yes.
actually like fund it and facilitate it?
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Especially like being so
So
busy, like being in law school and, a lawyer, all that
sure.
sort of thing.
Dude, it was wild. I mean, I think God is literally destined. It was like Christmas. It's God has almost like destined me to do this because so many things came together. I'll give you a small example. In law school, um, a small example. I summered at a law firm in New York, and as part of that summer package, they said you can then go anywhere. The operative term was anywhere for a guy like me, and I was like, hmm. And they were like, we'll pay you to do pro bono work. So most people probably stick around New York or go back to
Right.
California or do whatever. I was like, I'm going to apply to a bunch of jobs in Switzerland
Hmm.
and with the United Nations. And I did, and I got a job with one of the UN organizations. They paid for it. Coincidentally, my dad was there that summer. And so I just used that as an opportunity during law school to travel around Europe, to go to Hungary and Italy and to go some other spots I hadn't been to. During law school, this is wild as well. I took a year out of law school and did a master's degree in England, in Cambridge, a master's in international relations, where I then traveled to all kinds of other countries
Wow.
in Europe, Latvia, Lithuania, South Africa, and places like that. Palestine and Israel as well, because we did a student trek out there.
Mhm.
So you can imagine how contentious that was, but we were able to do that through the university, which made it easier for us to get there
Yeah.
and experience different things that you normally wouldn't. But as a student, you can kind of get away with it. Um, so that's kind of the stuff I did in law school. I think also a friend of mine was this is random as hell, was filming a movie in China. And I got to go out there on the set and check it out. And I got into the movie itself as well as an extra. So, all
What movie is that if people want to try to spot you, by the way?
yeah, it was The Kite Runner. They
Oh,
were
wow.
filming it. They were filming it in Urumqi or Kashgar, Western China. And as you know, phenotypically, the people in Western China have Mongolian roots, Indian roots, roots from different parts of Central Asia. So they don't look phenotypically Chinese from that perspective. You know, their skin complexion, their
Mm.
nose shape, eye shape, jaw structure, everything. So I looked a little bit more like that. And so I was able to squeeze into to be an extra there. But again, it's a lot of random serendipitous things that kind of came together so I could travel during law school. And also because you make money during the summer vacations.
Mhm.
Um, as a summer associate, so you can always save a little bit of money and travel. Now, the big travel that I did was after law school. I had saved up a little bit of money, and we call bar trips, where you can, after you finish the bar exam, before you find out your score, you travel around the world or you travel somewhere. And I just went absolutely ham. I'm talking like I think to 20 countries in a matter of 3 months. It
Wow.
was crazy. I'm
That's awesome.
talking like Australia to Bali to China to Cambodia to Thailand, Jordan. I think I went back to Palestine at the time in Ramallah. I went to oh my god, I mean I went to so many different spots traveling with friends. Um, because I kind of knew I was going to have a job, hopefully at the back end, so I
Yeah.
could blow through
Yeah.
my savings and know that it was gonna pay off if I passed the bar. And thank God I did. So I think those are kind of opportunities that I took during law school, and I was able to travel. And I could tell you a little bit more about post law school, post working as a lawyer, how I was able to travel, kind of more of as a digital nomad. So I mean, if that's something else that you want to discuss there as well, because that's what really helped me go from like 60 countries to 160.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. If you want to go into that, I'd love to hear that. Because
So
that's something that's on my bucket list is to like do that digital nomad, you know, phase or digital nomad, point in life as a creator, and I haven't quite done that yet. So I definitely want to hear how you got that done.
and again, purely serendipitous. After I graduated law school in '08. And as anybody knows, the economic crisis smacked us in '08, and a lot of lawyers were canned, especially those that were in transactional work when transactions came to a grinding halt. So I ended up starting an admissions company. I had gone into Berkeley for law school. I had done my undergrad at UCLA. I had done my grad school in Cambridge, so I knew a thing or two about applications and getting in with pretty like poor SAT scores and LSAT scores based on a very strong application material that I put together. So a friend of mine and I started the company, and that allowed us to work from pretty much anywhere. I could have a conversation with clients as I'm having with you right now, and then we would work with them on designing their profile and editing their application so that they can get into top programs around the world. And that really opened my eyes to the ability that you can make money and be footloose and not have to be tethered to a desk. In fact, I would almost say, since that stint in law school, after law school, and I was at the law firm, I haven't been tethered to a desk since. Even though I did work with the U.S. Government as an international lawyer, and I did have a desk and I did have to come to work, but our work was so internationally focused that we were able to travel every month, travel somewhere for a week or 2 weeks. And at the back of those trips, I would use them as a stopover, do the work in that country, and then use it to kind of catapult to other places. A good example, I went to Malaysia and then ended up going for work and ended up going to Brunei and Nepal. I did work in Georgia, and then I took a bus to Armenia and then a flight to Azerbaijan, right? So I would use it and then go to other countries nearby on those trips. So those were ways that I was able to facilitate it. So as a digital nomad, I used my admissions company to basically get work while I was traveling. And then as an employee, I looked for jobs that gave me a lot of opportunity to travel. And then since then, I went back to grad school after working with the government, did another master's in public administration, moved back to California. And then since then, just I've been working remotely. Mm-hmm. And I just keep trying to find things where I'm like, I don't want to come into an office. Yeah. I want to make money doing things on my own time, where I feel fulfilled, where I have flexibility, and I feel like I'm making an impact. And so that's kind of how I've been really leading my life. There's sacrifices you make, but it's been great from that perspective and facilitating my travel.
Yeah, that's awesome. The thing I'm most interested in is how you built that company in the first place to the point where you could have it be stable enough that you could go around the world and you had your processes in place, you had enough income coming in, customers. Like, how did you find like all of those pieces to put together? Was it a lot of networking from your past being brought back, or like, how would you recommend someone kind of start that business so they're able to do, digital nomad?
Yeah, I mean, look, I didn't make out like a bandit in any shape or form when I was doing my admissions work. I'll be honest. I don't have kids. I'm not married. So it always also gave me an incredible amount of flexibility from that perspective. I always have a lot of respect for those couples that travel together and with kids. I mean, that's crazy. Because think about how much you're spending. I mean, already on my trips, I try to keep everything as budget friendly as possible. Now you've got kids, you got to think about a ton of different things. So, I a lot of respect for those folks. For me, I think the way I was able to get the company off the ground is at the time, and this is like 17 years ago, we took work from anywhere and we charged very little. So we got a lot of clients to start. So down the funnel, we had a lot of clients to start off because we would charge a hell of a lot less than anyone, even if it was a lot of work for a little reward. But then by the second or third year, we created a referral network. So those guys would always invariably refer, and we would just advertise in basic forms. And we didn't need to have more than like 50 to 100 clients a year. That's not a huge ask. And remember, it's a service-based industry. You're working application by application. So there wasn't overheads. Everything, we made it a very lean business. I didn't have a ton of staff. Now, I don't do the admissions work as often. I have a staff in place, and I like operations because as lawyers, our brains think in that way. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, I was able to create the company and grow it and hire the experts and do all that kind of stuff.
Cool. So when you're saying like, basically you could take clients from anywhere. So these are people all around the world that are trying to get into different institutions. Are the institutions mostly in the US, or are they, all different places?
It's mostly anybody that has a US application process. I mean, English speaking process. Okay. So I've worked with MBA applicants that are based in Europe and the application's in English. So that's not hard. Mostly for college applicants, they're in the US, UK, or Canada. And now that we've developed an expertise, for example, helping students from anywhere internationally into top grad programs, because I was able to go to the Harvard Kennedy School and do my second master's there. So we built a very niche practice helping people get into these very elite policy programs as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. I worked for a little bit in placing international students with host families in the U.S.
Yep.
For schools. So like
Yeah.
high schools and colleges and master's degree programs. So yeah, that's interesting because I know a little bit about that, and there's a lot of people that want to come from other countries
Yeah.
over to the U.S. So that's awesome, and that goes to show you there's all different paths
Yeah.
to a similar goal, right? So
Yeah.
whatever you got to basically figure out what you're good at, what your background is, what you
Yeah.
can use to make that reality happen for you.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. So another thing I want to talk about is kind of how you've grown in your content creation journey. So, when you first started out, what kind of equipment did you use? How has your, filming and your thought process and processes about, creating your travel video content evolved over time?
Sure. So Final 50 didn't really come about until COVID. I was traveling naturally and I was, doing what I usually do. Some of the countries, I have to admit, I blitzed through. Some other ones I spent some significant time, and some that I went back to several times. But it was around COVID. I still remember I was driving up north, and one of the things I did during COVID is I spent a hell of a lot of time doing domestic traveling, like 10 to 15,000 miles. I think my partner and I drove around exploring national parks, camping everywhere. I mean, God bless, we were so fortunate that we never got sick and that our family was okay, and that we just rented a car and it's like we didn't care. We're like, let's just go. Let's just go check out all the spots. Oregon, Washington, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, you name it. We just kind of traveled around. So it was during that time that I was able, I was driving and I thought about it. I was like, you know what? I'm kind of getting close to my final 50 countries. In fact, just before COVID, I had gone to Fiji, and I remember saying I was recording a short, like not even a short, just like something from my Instagram, and I had very few followers. And I posted, I'm like, oh wow, this is country 146, maybe it was, or 145. And I was really excited because I was getting close to the final 50. And I remember coming back from the trip, and then COVID hit and everything went to hell and back. And then we were like, I was around June, July. I'm like, I'm getting close to the final 50. Wouldn't it be cool to do some kind of content creation? Now, I'm going to preface that, Ed. I was already creating content for Right Track, my admissions company. So I became very familiar with being on camera. As you can tell, I love public speaking. I love doing this kind of stuff. So it was very fluid for me. So I was doing shorts for a long time for Right Track. To educate people for free about different things, college applications, law school, and so forth. So I was already doing that. And I was doing it on my trips. So I was thinking to myself, like, why don't I do this on an international scale when I travel? And that's kind of the genesis of Final 50 around June of 2021. And we finally launched the channel in 2022. February, it was 2/22/22. And I'm going to show you,
Nice.
and that was kind of the thing. Two was already my lucky number.
Oh, nice.
So this is the website that we launched. So this is kind of the starting point. I don't know. Can you see my screen? Yeah, I think you can see
Yeah,
it.
I think here, let me highlight it.
Cool. So this was kind of like became, and then you're like, well, how the hell did you create this thing? Right. And I was like, I found people on Upwork. So the first game changer was freelancers. Because I was able to create this like video, this tiny little video right there with these little counter right here, right? Then I was able to find a dude who sat there and did this whole website for me. I created all the content. They did that. So I started creating content using the website. So these were blogs that I wrote and so forth, but there wasn't any videos. It was just content. Everything was Instagram and stuff like that.
And for our audio only listeners, so the video that Hamada was talking about, there's a bunch of pictures flying basically at the camera from all different parts of the world. And the website looks amazing. It's very visual. It's very intriguing. It's kind of like you can't help but scroll and click on stuff.
Yeah.
So it's a very well made website.
Yeah, I tried my best to do that. And then the other thing, Ed, that was really tricky when you create a channel is like, what's your sauce? What's your schlick, right? So we got Bourdain was killing it in the food and politics space almost, right? Mm-hmm. You've got people that focus, over-index on food. You got folks that are doing crazy adventures, people traveling as couples, people traveling as families, right? All kinds of stuff. You got, like those harbingers, like what's his name? Drew Binsky, right? I mean, he didn't even have to create an angle. He was just one of the first guys out there. And so I would say, like, what the hell is going to be my angle? I'm not anything special per se. It's not like I'm going out there and hyper focusing on something. And that's kind of where I came up with this and saying, maybe this could be an angle. And that was this concept of education, exploration, and entertainment, which really boded well with my personality. So that was, I had to be authentic. I couldn't bullshit somebody and tell you, hey, I'm going to be the food guy, because honestly, food is just one aspect of traveling and it's not hyper important to me. I like food, but I'm not going to be eating scorpions for you guys, right?
Yeah.
Even though I did eat a cricket in Cambodia. Was it a cricket or was it a grasshopper? One of those two. But anyway, education for me has always been important. As you saw, like I went to like top schools. I was, I'm a lawyer. So education, policy, politics, history is important to me. So I had that as an important aspect. I wasn't going to, cower from that. Exploration is important to me because I love being active. I do my 10,000 steps a day. I did recently a half Ironman. I did a marathon. I run in every country I visit. So I've run in over 100 countries. So I knew exploration and doing something that's physical is going to be an important aspect of what I do. So I felt that was the body aspect of it. So if education is the mind, exploration is the body, then we get into the entertainment side. And that's where the food comes in. And that really is where the five senses comes in. And that's important about content creation, right? Is hyper focusing on those senses. Even though, what do we get on camera? We get the visual aspect. We're not going to taste. We're not going to touch. We're not going to smell. And we're not going to, and we'll hear, of course, and we'll see. Those are the only two senses you're going to get. But how in the hell are we going to get all the other senses to give you that whole experience? Because all those five senses there is what gives you those memories that allows you to draw back on that experience, that allows that memory to always stay fixated in your brain. Yeah. And so the soul entertainment can really allow you to touch with all of those, the music, the sounds, the things you're seeing visually, the smell, being very graphic about that, the touching, where you're going, and the tasting, the food.
Right.
And I'll say this as a side note. When I was at Berkeley, I co-taught a class, or I was a teaching assistant to a class called The Politics of Music. And what was fascinating about that class was it was a survey course of politics infused with music. So we would look at Jamaica and politics, and then talk about Bob Marley and reggae and how it came together, right? You would look at tango in Argentina, and then looking at the military junta of the 1970s and nationalism in Argentina, and on and on and on. So I always dreamed that I would do a podcast or I would do a show about that. And so Final 50 gave me a small opportunity to play with that idea. And so that's why it's been an important aspect. So once I nailed down the core concept of what we're going to focus on in the channel, that's when the content creation became easier.
Right. And
that's when I really hyper-focused on my YouTube channel. More so than TikTok, more so than Instagram. It's been about this.
Yeah.
And so it goes back to your question, like, how did I start? I started off with these very basic videos, and you can see 300 views, 200 views, 300 views. Everything is filmed on my iPhone. And has been and has until now. Sometimes I'll use a GoPro if I'm going to swim.
Right.
Or a drone if I'm feeling ballsy and I want to go sky high. Even though now I've stopped doing that because I almost got arrested doing that. So I try to avoid the drone.
And the drone is a loaded thing to bring with you around the world,
especially to the countries that I'm going to. And then now, most recently, the Osmo Pocket 3.
I love that camera. I love it. It's amazing.
It's amazing.
So I mean, that's another thing, you don't need any fancy equipment. You just need to make interesting content that's authentic, right? You can use just your phone, and you have for most of your journey.
Yep. Exactly.
And that's awesome. And the other thing too that I wanted to talk to you about is the aspect of outsourcing, because I know that that's something that you've done when you talk about creating your website. And you talked to me a little bit about that previously. So, just to have the audience share
Sure.
in like that kind of aspect of how did you decide it's time to start outsourcing so I can, prioritize my time
Sure.
in, what I can do. This is not your full-time job, right? The content creation, but it's something that takes up a lot of time and you're passionate about it. And so how did you decide, okay, I want to kind of focus on certain things and kind of give other things to other people?
Hmm. The leg up I had, Ed, was I was already doing that with Right Track. So you have to keep remembering, I already had kind of like got the reps in with Right Track. So I was already hiring folks internationally to do website creation, graphics, content review, um, video editing. I was already doing that with Right Track. So when this came on, it was like seamless. I was like, okay, I'm already doing this with Right Track. Let me just start flipping the switch over to Final 50. So from the jump, I knew my sauce is not in video editing. There's no way in hell that's going to happen, right? It's just not going to happen. It takes so long to edit a video and learn. And I was doing that with Right Track, trying to figure out how to use Final Cut Pro and stuff. And it just took forever and the quality was crap. So I was like, this is just not my area of expertise. So what I ended up doing is I found, I outsourced typically on Upwork, which had been working for me. Editors for the graphics for Instagram, social media managers to oversee whatever graphics were being created and when to post them and how to kind of push them out. Then the content creators for shorts, right, which are very different from the content creators of the videos. And within the videos, I had content creators that were doing things like medium-sized vlogs like these, which were more like pulling B-roll and putting it together. And then these, which were the really longer ones, the long form vlogs. I had another editor that was doing those. And now I have another editor that does these walking tours, which that with the Osmo 3 that we talked
Right.
about. So that one, again, I have another editor doing that. So I have these editors and I have a redundancy of editors because if I'm producing 2 to 3 videos a month, these editors all have other jobs. They may be like, I can't do it. So I have to have someone who can fall back and cover that person and have a variety of content so that A, it changes things up on the channel, but B, I can find people who have expertise in different areas. So if I feel like I can't record a long form vlog, like the real hardcore vlog with the beautiful transitions and the color corrections and the music and the real heart and soul, then I can also get those walking tours out. I can also get those behind the scenes, right? So I started creating this series called Behind the Scenes so that you can kind of know like what flights to take to get to a certain country, accommodations, safety concerns, all that kind of stuff, currency. What do you do? And I know this stuff like the back of my head because A, I've done it myself. And B, I'm kind of a hacker in these things. I'm not rich so that I can sit there and splurge on first class tickets. And I'm not mindful of how much I'm spending. I'm very mindful of that because like you said, this is not my full-time job. In fact, I've only made $100 off my channel in 3 years. And I've probably spent tens of thousands of dollars traveling and putting all this stuff together.
Yeah. And the other thing that is super interesting that you were talking about is the walking videos. I also started doing that with my Osmo Pocket 3. And I noticed that a lot of the times those videos for me get more traction than the traditional vlogs. And it's pretty interesting. Like what has your experience been with that, with like the different types of content? And like,
Yeah.
The other thing too, I have a follow-up question, which is, do you, when you release content, do you do it kind of like, okay, let's say I have the Marshall Islands, I have a vlog, and then I have a walking video, and then I have a behind the scenes kind of all coming out at the same time? Or are they kind of more scattered out between each other in like the different locations?
There's no rhyme or reason. And if anybody's listening to this and has a magic bullet, tell me, because as you can see, I've been working on this channel for 3 solid years and I Don't have a ton of subscribers. I have a little bit of subscribers. I have, over 300 videos I've popped out.
That's
But
awesome.
there's no rhyme or reason. Consistency is key.
Mhm.
But to answer that, the first question is, when I created in terms of the walking tour, it just kind of came to me. I was sitting in a cafe, I think, a Thai restaurant here in LA, near Hollywood, and they had on TV a walking, like somebody they was walking around like a jackass, but with a 4K, which is hard, right? Because that's a shit ton of content. It's like an hour at 4K is like,
Yeah. It's a
I
big
don't
file.
know. It's a huge, it's like 20
Yeah.
gigabytes. It's so
Yeah.
big. So I can't even film on 4K because it's like my team is in Venezuela. They can't download that. It's just not gonna they can't download and upload it.
Yeah.
So I usually film in 1080 or 2.7 2.7K on the Osmo. But the Osmo is just a game changer because also if you're using a camera, you're gonna rock up and down. And if you put it in active mode, it needs so much light
Yeah.
that it starts pixelating. So the Osmo really creates it. The Osmo 2 is nice. The Osmo 3 craps on it because it has a nice screen. It's easier to touch. It goes horizontal and it films nicely at night.
Yeah.
So I just started walking around. And as you can see, the first time I did it ever was in the Marshall Islands.
Mhm.
And I got this editor to do it for me. And I'm like, okay, we got to get music and populate the music in there. So we got to find copyright free music.
Yeah.
And I love EDM. So I'm like, I got to get some nice electronic dance music and just play in the background. And when I was watching that person doing it in the Thai restaurant, I'm like, I was addicted to it. I was like watching it and watching and watching and watching it. There was no commentary, so I can't clown
Yeah.
on the guy. There was nothing crap about it. It's just a person walking the street.
Right.
This is
You get
great.
to experience it. Yeah.
That's it. And kind of go back. It's almost like IRL, but not really, but kind of yes. Even though
Yeah.
there's editing, but you're going to have random people coming in the middle of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I was like, this is going to be so easy to edit
Yeah.
for my thing. And it's just going to have musical transitions, just basic transitions, and just me walking, giving people an idea. So I was like, let's do it in the Marshall Islands. So this one, we did the first one in Palau. It didn't do super well. It got about 360 views, probably only 20 watch hours. But then we did the second one in the Marshall Islands, and there's not much difference, but somehow this one clicked. And it got 3,300 views and over 200 watch hours. Now, watch hours, as any content creator knows, not that I'm going to be making millions, is where you make your cheese on Google, YouTube. So we were able to start getting some real good traction, and it was easy. I wasn't like struggling to go through creating those long form vlogs, which take hours and hours and hours of work. We're talking voiceovers, writing the script, designing the story, piecing all the content together, then essentially editing, then adding the transitions, then editing, then adding the music, then editing, and then combining, closing, and then finally releasing.
Yeah.
Holy crap. I can't even tell you how many hours of work goes into it, to the point that you just have to say to yourself, it's a sacrifice. It's for posterity. It's for the future. So now this gave me the opportunity to kind of switch things around for my editors and not to feel that sense of like stress about it. So we then did a second walking tour here in Micronesia. Hasn't been as good, but I think this one is better than the other two for sure. We have another one coming out in a couple of days with me skiing.
Oh, wow. That's fun.
In Chamonix and in Courchevel in France, because I didn't have time to do a whole vlog and the whole thing. We just recorded us skiing and walking through the town. So it's been a great way of kind of jamming information in there. And then to answer your second question, there is no rhyme or reason. I told my editors, guys, we already have 5 videos in the South Pacific. I did these trips in November. But I'm like, let's get another video and switch it out. Yeah. So we're going to put the
different part of the
ski
world.
one. Right. But and the ski one is in April, not the best time, but it's at the tail end of the season. So also, are you agnostic to time?
Right.
Is it evergreen content or is it like timely? Like I did content in Ramadan, right? I'm Muslim, I fast. So that one, like we did one in Egypt where I was fasting. We tried to get that one out as fast as possible. Then I went to like the Monaco Grand Prix.
As fast as possible. I see what you did there.
We had to do it as
Unintentional pun.
yeah, exactly. But we had to get that one out within like 2 weeks before the whole buzz of Formula
Yep.
One moved on. So sometimes things are time sensitive and sometimes they're just evergreen, and you can get them out. But I do like to change them up
Yeah.
for the audience.
Yeah, that's something that I've been thinking a lot about too, is because I have some videos from 2017 I haven't put out yet. And I'm like, oh, is this, is it weird? But I think it all comes down to like what you're saying. It's like if you're talking about something that is very now, then yeah, you should get it out like that. But
Yeah.
I've kind of been doing what you've been saying and kind of popping all around different places. And I don't know if it's weird for the audience, maybe not, but it's what makes sense for me right now and what I'm able to do. And what
To do.
like definitely what you're saying is you don't want to make too many similar things in a row. I think. I mean, maybe other travel creators are have a different advice on that, but the other thing too that's interesting is like you put music with your walking videos. I typically have just the sounds because I feel like that's like you're talking about the senses. That's another sense of like,
Sure.
okay, what does this place sound like? What language can I hear? Like, can I hear that dog barking, or what's that siren? Is that like an ambulance, or is this something different for this country? Whatever, right?
Yeah.
So that's another thing too, is like I wonder if there are people that prefer, I'm sure there are people that prefer like music with it, or people that prefer to listen to just the sound. And also,
Yeah.
what kind of music is it, right? Like you're saying, like you love EDM, I do too, but someone might not like that, right? So
It's a
the
good
question.
it's a good point. And to exactly your point, I told my editor, if you find a sound that makes sense, a siren, a dog barking, I'll give you a good example. I did a video where when I was diving in Palau and we had dolphins. So you could hear the dolphins on the GoPro. I'm like, dude, amp that up, lower the music.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm talking, amp it up. So I asked them to kind of play with it to get the audience involved and go back and forth.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and it's funny because I started doing this during COVID. I noticed my mom was watching a lot of these walking videos because we couldn't go out and travel, and she was kind of living vicariously through it, and she really got into that, and so I got used to seeing all of that, and that kind of once we could go back out and everything, it kind of made me think, wow, there's some people out there that really like this stuff. And for some people, like, when we're in COVID, we're locked up, or, maybe someone can't travel for whatever reason, or it's too much money or whatever. These kinds of things are providing a certain service. And the other thing too, which is interesting, is even if someone else has made it just be, how many people have made vlogs in, like, let's say Tokyo, right?
Mhm.
Like a bunch, a lot,
Sure.
but they're all different times of year. They're different perspectives. You're doing different things, different seasons, different weather, different times of day. So there's more opportunity than you think. And just because someone else has done it, quote unquote, it's always different. And there's different people on the street. There's different street performers, whatever. Right. So even if someone, like if you and I both went to Palau and we both did a walking video, maybe yours is daytime, maybe mine's at nighttime, maybe mine's in the rain, yours is in, the sun. So
and that's true. Like right now, if you look that up, you'll find that exact thing. And I was looking up, like, has anybody done a walking tour in Marshall Islands? And lo and behold, there was. I got some interesting insights, but I did it myself because exactly, like, what's the chances of you having, my day was clouded, their day was sunny.
Right.
My time was in a season, so there was less people in the streets. There may be more people in the streets in another video. And then you create it into a playlist. I think this is important too, Ed, because what you do is that you hope that people play it and then go from one video to the next video to the next video. It's playing in the background. So we try to make it as easy as possible for people just to have this kind of stuff in the background playing so they can enjoy it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So the other question that I'm curious about is, since you started filming your travels, has that changed like how you experience travel and how you think about it? Because I feel like for me it has, because in the past, before I started, vlogging and doing all this stuff, I would, travel and I would just kind of not think about, I would just be more in the moment. And
Mm.
it's interesting because this way, when I travel and I vlog it or, take video, I am trying to be in the moment, but I'm also trying to be in the moment for the audience and try to explain and, like you said, bring those other senses to them. But other times, I always have times where I'm like, for this period of the day or this day or whatever, I'm not filming it because I feel like I need to still have that authentic experience. And sometimes also it just is weird to film, right? So I wanted to talk about your experience with that and, like how that has changed since you became content creator.
Um, Honestly, you couldn't said it better. The reality is exactly that. There is people that talk about the balance, and there is really a necessity of balance of being in the moment. I will say this: prior to having the channel, I was a lot less intentional traveling. I would go into a country, blitz through, leave, or I would just hyper focus on X, or I wouldn't feel the necessity to talk to Y or go explore that final mile. I would just kind of chill. Since I became a content creator, when I travel to these places, um, I'm a lot more intentional. I'm much better at planning, but also leaving things to chance. I talk to a lot more people when I travel than I ever did. Um,
Yeah.
because I would be worried. And I now feel I can talk to people. I have license to talk to people because I'm filming their country. And
Yeah.
so I get away with it. I get away with it. I could go to people and be like, "Hey, do you know where I give you a good example. I was in Uzbekistan and I landed in the airport. I landed. What am I talking about? I actually took a car from Tajikistan into Uzbekistan, and then I got to Uzbekistan, a taxi, and I went to my hotel, checked in Bishkek, the capital, and I went to the receptionist and I was talking and I saw the guy was young. So I kind of said, I'm like, yeah, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm just trying to see, like, do you know anybody who's like, could show me around?
Yeah.
Well, you guys like, sure, I guess. And I'm like, yeah, I'm trying to see every country on earth. And they're like, what the hell? What do you mean trying to see every country in the world? And I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I actually have a channel. And for me, crap, I don't have it with me. Oh, yeah, I do right here. So I don't know if you can see that. You see that right there? First of all, I've got my logo,
Yeah.
not my logo, but my motto, which I think is
Stay
super important.
curious.
Stay curious, right? I have it on my hat. But also, I have my QR code. So when you scan that, you can automatically go to my YouTube channel.
That's so
Right,
cool.
right on the back of my phone, right?
That's so
And so
smart.
as opposed to, I'm telling you, back in
Yeah.
the day, I was like, I'd open it up, I'd
Yeah.
show it.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, just scan this. They scan it. Most people have smartphones, and they can
Yeah.
open up the channel. They see it, so they see, oh my god, the guy's legit. He's got 300 pieces of video. He's got a couple of thousand people following him. Okay, cool. The guy's legit.
Mm.
And as soon as that happens, I'm in. These people become my local heroes.
Yeah.
And you watch this with Bourdain, right? You'd always have a local gaffer or a local, like, I don't know what you call fixer, and they
Yep.
would just travel with him and kind of open doors and show things to them. And that's what I've been able to achieve because of this channel. So for me, it's been a blessing in that it's forced me to be more intentional, a better traveler, a more conscientious traveler.
Mhm.
Um, it's allowed me to research more. Every country I go to, I read the Wikipedia page before I go.
Yep.
Then I do a little bit of a deeper dive to like just research as much as
Yeah.
I can. So when I land, I'm not seeing a country in black and white, but in Technicolor.
Yeah.
It makes more sense. Um, and now I make friends in different parts of the world, create content that makes sense, get their names out there, co-create with other people, collaborate, which is something I really want to do more of
Yeah.
when I go to these different places, especially the last 33 countries that I'm going to go to, which are super hard to get to. And they're super out there, like Somalia and Libya and Mali and Burkina Faso and Central African Republic,
Yeah.
Turkmenistan. Like these are the places I haven't been to. And I'm like, there's not that many content creators are going out there and doing that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's amazing that you're almost to your final 30. Like
Yeah.
that must feel amazing. Like honestly, that is like the dream for me. That would be amazing. And that, like, I can't believe like that you're gonna get, like, very few people get to do that in their lives. So that's amazing. And I know that you're gonna get there. You only have like 30 something left, so it's a matter of time. But The other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, we talked about, going to the countries and the content creation and how that's changed. And the thing is, having the camera is kind of like a blessing and a curse, right? At least I've found it to be that way. So, sometimes when I have the camera out, I get too much attention that I don't want, but other times it does open doors. And like, for example, I almost use it as a way to talk to people and kind of an icebreaker because, I've done this IRL stream where I was at a content creator party and it was a Halloween party, whatever. So I could have just sat in the corner and watched people dance, but instead I went up to people and I was like, "Hey, I'm live streaming. Let me interview you, blah, blah, blah." And I talked to, I don't know, like 50 people, right? And everyone was happy to talk to me because I had if I just come up to people randomly and started like asking these questions, it'd be like maybe a little weird. So it does give you that license to dive deeper and people are like, "Oh, okay, I get what he's doing here." But then other times it's like, that's why something like the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is good because, it doesn't look like a camera. It's small, kind of blends in. You can kind of just hold it with you and walk around. And because it has that built-in gimbal, you're going to get pretty stable footage.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. Or like back in the day when I was living in India and sometimes I didn't want to like have a camera out or have my phone out or whatever. And I had um, the GoPro that was the GoPro Hero Session, which is literally just a little square box, a black box. And I could just hold it in my hand and it had decent,
Footage.
yeah, it
Yeah.
had decent stabilization. There you go. It's not as good as the Pocket, but it was good for the time. And the other thing is, if I didn't have that, I wouldn't be able to capture certain moments that were,
Sure.
more authentic and people weren't kind of like looking at me. And the other thing too is that, having like the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 is not waterproof. And that's a huge thing.
Mm-mm.
So I agree, you need something like a GoPro or, a lot of cameras are water resistant nowadays, but it's not enough to like go in the water swimming, right?
No,
So
God, no.
I had the most viewed video on my channel was when I was in India and I hiked up this mountain in the rain. The only reason I could have done that was because I had the GoPro. Um, if not, I wouldn't have been able to get that footage, but it's my most popular video. So, that goes to show you that, yes, you can start with anything, but also think about like when you're planning a trip, having options and having those different tools to be able to capture different kinds of footage. But you don't have to start like that, right? You can have an umbrella and have your phone to start. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And look, you got to you got to be smart about these things. I mean, I slowly bought the things and I returned certain things.
Mhm.
Like somebody was like, "Oh, you really should buy the maybe it's called the ZV-1
Okay. Yeah.
Sony. It's a vlogger camera." And I'm like, and I got it and I was like, "Oh, I'm super pumped to try it." And bro, it's idiotic. When you're traveling to crazy places,
Mhm.
I like crazy, when there's 1,000 things happening,
Yeah.
but more importantly, there's security issues.
Mhm.
There's intelligence officers around you,
Yeah.
and you stick out, and you're walking around with a camera like a jackass that's got a screen on a screen, and you're holding it, and
Yeah.
you're gonna get a lot of unwanted attention.
Yeah.
And trust
Exactly.
me, the invitations you're talking about are in places that are easy to travel to, or people are. I'm telling you, like I remember traveling to Ghana and I had my GoPro and I was walking through the market and people are like, "Who the hell are you? Stop the camera, switch it off," because they're worried about intelligence everywhere.
Mhm.
People taking footage and reporting them to police. I mean, you just look at what's happening around the world now. So you want to be as stealth as you can. The iPhone or just your phone is easy because at worst case, you're just kind of like holding it like this and walking around.
Right.
Sometimes I even hold it low and I put the stabilizer on it and just kind of walk through an area.
So
The
having your
camera,
phone out is pretty normal versus
exactly.
a big camera. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I see it like Drew Binsky does it, but again, like he's, God bless his heart. I mean, that guy's got probably an entourage of folks with him. He's got fixers that probably protect him and give him some cover, tell him where to go. I mean, the guy's Caucasian with red freaking hair. So he's not going to blend in a lot of places in some of the countries he's going to. So you have to be very mindful
Yeah.
of that. And then that trumps trying to get that awesome piece of footage. Oh,
Oh yeah.
safety, 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 because I mean, what a stupid way to go down in a blaze of glory. If you're in the middle of nowhere, you've upset someone, they've taken your camera, and now you're in jail, and now you're trying to justify what happened. And like I said, I got detained in Ghana because I had a drone, and I'm flying it over the main square and the main arc, and it turned out to be a no-fly zone. And it was like the second time in my life I've ever flown a drone, and the police descended on me.
Right.
Well, they took me to a secure, area, and they were like questioning me and doing all
Right.
kinds of stuff. And thankfully, I knew a couple of people on the ground who were able to come out and like bail me out.
Right.
And I didn't have anything like that would be suspect on my
Yep.
footage. And they knew I was a tourist. It was around
Right.
COVID.
Right. Right.
So they, I deleted it and whatever. And it was, bygones be bygones. But Ghana's got great relations, especially at the time with the US. You go to a place that doesn't,
Right.
you're the line of fire and you're the one who got yourself in there. So be
Yeah.
very cautious about what you're using, how to do it. Don't be over the top.
Mm.
If you interview people, you probably want to ask them, at least get like, hey, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. Is it
Right.
okay if you can jump on camera, and then do it? And if they're like, no, close it, move on.
And the other thing,
Or do the interview. And then afterwards, this is something I learned, I think, even watching Drew, is do the interview, then come back and be like, okay, so I just did this great interview with someone. I couldn't get it on camera because they really wanted us to be private.
right. Right.
And then you can tell the audience, and the audience is like, oh, wow, I wish I knew more about it.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing too is, like we're based in the US, and a lot of, the viewers and the listeners are as well. Not all of them, obviously, but, local laws are very different depending on where you are. And in the United States, basically, you don't have a right to privacy if you're in a public space. So that's why, technically it's totally legal. If you're on the street, if you're in a public place in the US, you can film whatever, as long as you're not harassing someone, if you're not like following them around, specifically or whatever. If someone shows up in your footage, there's no legal recourse because you decided to go out in public, right?
Right.
Other countries don't necessarily operate that way. So you have to be aware about what your rights are in that country. And like you're saying, look things up ahead of time, figure out, okay, if I get into this issue in this country, what options do I have? What excuses can I say that will get me out of this? Because, most people, I think, are not doing anything, that is malicious. Obviously, there are some people that are like that go around filming and give the rest of us a bad name. But, you just want to get out of trouble, stay out of trouble, and be aware of everything. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, look, don't chase the climax, right?
Yeah.
Don't chase the climax simply to be able to get to that area, because at the end of the day, it's good. You're gonna get in trouble.
Right. So the last question I have for you is, will your content creation journey end when you reach your last country?
I don't know. I wish I could tell you there was a magic ball. Like part of me is like, I would love to do what you're doing. Maybe create a podcast. And I always dreamed about like, how cool would it be to do a podcast for people who are trying to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And then get experiences and tips from them, or, something else. I think that could be where it goes to. It could be about writing something and then seeing where that kind of takes you to. Could be about doing a show, because you get to a certain point where you have established so much experience and so forth, so you can do that. I think there'll be some content creation, but I don't think it's going to be mission critical. I think the goal is to get to these final, my goal is to get to the final 50 before I'm 50. So it sounds kind of crazy, but it's kind of the goal. And that gives me just a couple of years to knock these out. So I think I'm just taking one step at a time, developing it, and then seeing where it goes. Again, this is not my full-time job. This is just something that I do. And it's just been a passion project. And truly, Ed, exactly like you said, it's made me a better traveler, more conscientious, more intentional. And I think for those reasons, I think a big reason for that is because it's authentic. I enjoy, and I do it on my own terms. I don't bullshit people and say, hey, I'm the foodie guy when I don't care that much about food, or I'm the guy who's the dance guy when I don't care that much about the dancing. It's like, I care about the whole package. And I think because of that, and the authenticity, it does help.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, it's like you you don't know when your content creation journey is going to end, or your career, whatever. You know, some actors you see, they go up until the very end. You know, they're acting forever because they love it, right? So, you know, that's interesting. I just wanted to know, like, oh, is this, you know, after
Yeah.
these, and it's still, man, there's still a lot of countries. So you got 33. So,
Yeah.
you know, there's definitely a lot coming on, but yeah. So I just wanted to give you an opportunity to plug anything before we ended here. You know, shout anything out and where people can find you.
Yeah, I think the most important is just going to that YouTube channel, Final 50 World, subscribing to that. That is where you'll get a lot of the content. The shorts are there, the videos are there, the main stuff. I also have Final 50 World on Instagram, so you can also follow us there, and on TikTok. So those are essentially the main places, avenues for Final 50. And other than that, you can also check out the website, which I shared with you, so you can learn more about me, my background, and the goal that I'm trying to create, and kind of following me on that journey. And I want to thank you, Ed. You know, this is a great initiative. I think content creation, we realize it's not just about making money, and it's not about just, you know, ego, but it's actually helps you in some ways, if you do it authentically, make you a better traveler, possibly even a better person, because you want to go the distance, you want to meet more people, and you really want to learn from that experience. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, check them out. Check Hamada out. Final50.world. It's not .com. It's .world. So final50, the number 5, the number 0 .world, and check them out as well on YouTube and everywhere else. Final 50. So thanks so much, Hamada, and yeah, thanks to you for listening.